Welcome! In this explainer, we're diving deep into PC Guard's serial number settings. Honestly, getting a handle on this feature is absolutely essential for controlling how your software gets distributed, tracked, and licensed. So let's jump right in. So here's what we're going to cover. We'll kick things off with a quick intro to what serial numbers are all about. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty, configuring them, generating them, and validating them. After that, we'll look at the blacklist for managing bad keys, peek at the protection interface for you developers, and then we'll wrap it all up with a quick summary. Okay, first up, let's get on the same page about what serial numbers actually are inside PC Guard. And maybe more importantly, we're going to see how they act completely differently depending on your protection method. This is a really critical distinction, so you'll want to pay close attention here. At its heart, a serial number is just a unique tag. Think of it like a VIN on a car. It identifies one specific copy of your software out of potentially thousands. This is super important, when you're not selling directly from your website, like if you're using resellers or selling box copies in a store. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. On the left, with remote protection, your user needs two things, the serial and an activation code. And here's the key takeaway. The activation code is the boss. Whatever features it has will always stomp on anything in the serial. But over on the right, with plain or USB protection, life is simpler. The user just needs a valid serial. Once they pop it in, it's saved and they're never bothered again. It's a one-and-done deal. All right, now that we've got the theory down, let's get our hands dirty. We're going to walk through the actual settings you'll be using to get serial numbers working inside your PC Guard project. Okay, think of this screen as your command center. You've got the main on-off switch, you can define how many serials you need, and pick a file name for the output. Now that seed value, that's the secret sauce. It's a unique key that makes sure your serials are yours and yours alone. You can even randomize it for an extra layer of security. And finally, you can tell it to include the IDs or even flag blacklisted serials right in your generated file, which makes life a lot easier later. Here's a really powerful trick, especially for plain or USB protection. You can bake features right into the serials themselves. The process is super easy. Just check the Embed Features box, hit Edit to pick what you want. But here's the pro tip. You have to keep that Features window open when you click Generate. If you close it, it won't work. Trust me on that one. And I'm going to say this again because it is that important. When you're using remote protection, the activation code always wins. It's the final authority. Any features it has will completely overwrite whatever you embedded in the serial number. No exceptions. So, we've tweaked all the settings. Now what? Well, now we actually have to create the serial numbers. Let's walk through that process. And then we'll cover something just as crucial. How to check if a specific serial is legit. Generating the serials is really just a simple checklist. You open the dialog, flip the switch to enable them, put in your unique seed value and tell it how many you want. If you're embedding features, you'll set those up and then boom, hit generate and you've got your file full of fresh serial numbers. Okay, so you've sent thousands of serials out into the world. A support ticket comes in. A customer claims their key is invalid. What do? How can you quickly figure out if the key they gave you is real or not? Well, luckily, PC Guard has a validation tool built right in. Now, the single most important step here is to make sure you load the correct project settings first. If you don't, it won't work. After that, it's easy. Just pop open the panel, paste in the serial, and click Validate. You'll get an instant answer. A good key will show its ID and any features, and a bad one will just give you an error. Simple as that. All right, let's talk about what happens when things go wrong. Sooner or later, a serial number might get leaked, or maybe it was part of a fraudulent chargeback. You need a way to shut it down, and that is exactly what the blacklist is for. The blacklist is pretty much what it sounds like. It's your personal do not fly list for serial numbers. You add a serial to this list, and from that moment on, any copy of your protected application will just reject it flat out. It's your ultimate kill switch for revoking access. But you really need to understand how this works because there are a few, well, let's call them gotchas. First, you can only blacklist up to 50 serials. More importantly, that list is stored inside your protected application. Think about what that means for a second. A user could be happily using your software. You release an update with their serial on the blacklist, and their license is suddenly dead. For remote protection users, they're completely locked out until they get a whole new serial and activation code. It's powerful, but you got to use it wisely. Okay, developers, this next part is for you. Let's put on our coding hats. PC Guard gives you something called the protection interface, which lets you talk to the licensing system and pull serial number data right from your own code while your application is running. So using this interface, your own app can ask questions like, hey, is the serial number feature even turned on? Or has the user entered a valid serial yet? You can grab the full serial number string, and you can even check which features are embedded in that specific serial. This lets you build all sorts of custom logic in your app based on what the user is actually licensed for. And if you want to take it to the next level, there are even more advanced functions. You can use things like set serial number or invalidate serial number to programmatically set or even revoke a serial right from your application's logic. This gives you a really granular level of control. Whew. Okay, we have covered a ton of ground. To make sure it all sticks, let's just do a quick high-level review of the entire workflow from start to finish. When you boil it all down, it's really just these 5 steps. First, you configure your settings. Then, you generate your batch of serials. You validate them whenever you need to check one. You manage them using the blacklist. And finally, for the developers out there, you integrate with your own code using the protection interface. That's the whole lifecycle. So there you have it. That's the whole system, from A to Z, from creating serials to revoking them. We've gone over all the tools and the entire process. So really, the only question left is the one for you. How are you going to use all this power to level up your own software distribution and licensing strategy?